प्रणाम माता जी।
हरे कृष्ण माता जी, सादर प्रणाम।
प्रणाम माता जी, हरि बोल। थैंक यू फॉर ज्वाइनिंग। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरु वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Thank you all so much for joining. We are continuing our reading of the teachings of Queen Kunti, and today we'll be starting with verse number 7. It's another very beautiful verse, and here Kunti Maharani is talking about all the different problems that the Pandavas had to undergo and how they were saved by the grace of Lord Krishna. Okay, so in the purport, Prabhupada is mentioning about the details, more details of the tribulations and trials that the Pandavas and Kunti Maharani went through, and it's very nice to remember all these different pastimes. So we'll try to go and understand these pastimes in a little more detail. Okay, so let's start with the reading first. Would someone like to read the verse and the translation? Hare Krishna. Anyone wants to read the
Hare Krishna
verse?
Mataji. Can I read? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu, please. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Chapter 7, Dangerous Encounters. Uh, my dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from a poisoned cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Ashwatthama. Srimad
Prabhu,
Bhagavatam 1.8, 124.
would you like to read the shloka also?
Sure, Mataji.
Yes.
विशान्महाग्ने पुरुषादर्शनाद् असत्सभाया वनवासकृच्छ्रितः मृधे मृधे अनेका महारथा महारथा आस्त्रातो द्रोणे अस्त्रतश्चास्मा हरे अभिरक्षितः.
Thank you
Translation
so
of
much,
Prabhupada,
Prabhu.
Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone wants to read the first purport, paragraph in the purport?
Shall I, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, please.
Thank you, Mataji. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The list of dangerous encounters is submitted herein. Devaki was once put into difficulty by her envious brother, otherwise she was well. But Kunti Devi and her sons were put into one difficulty after another for years and years together. They were put into trouble by Duryodhan and his party due to the kingdom, and each and every time the sons of Kunti were saved by the Lord. Once Bhima was administered poison in a cake. Once they were put into the house made of shellac and set afire. And once Draupadi was dragged out, and attempts were made to insult her by stripping her naked in the vicious assembly of the Kurus. The Lord saved Draupadi by supplying an immeasurable length of cloth, and Duryodhana's party failed to see her naked. Similarly, when they were exiled in the forest, Bhima had to fight with the man-eater, demon Hidimb, Rakshas, but the Lord saved him. So it was not finished there. After all these tribulations, there was the great battle of Kurukshetra, and Arjuna had to meet such great generals as Drona, Bhishma, and Karna, all powerful fighters. And at last, even when everything was done away with, there was the Brahmastra released by the son of Dronacharya to kill the child within the womb of Uttara. And so the Lord saved the only surviving descendant of the Kurus, Maharaj Parikshit. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Dharmat Pranam. So, as I mentioned earlier, in this verse, Kunti Maharani is talking about all the different problems that the Pandavas had gone through. Uh, there was the poison cake, the great fire from cannibals, vicious assembly, sufferings during exile, and then obviously the Kurukshetra war. And after the Kurukshetra war, the uh, Brahmastra that was meant to kill Parikshit Maharaj that Ashwathama had sent. So Prabhupada in this first paragraph of the purport is mentioning that the list of dangerous encounters is submitted herein. That is the title of this chapter also, right? Dangerous encounters. So Prabhupada says that Devki was put into difficulty by her envious brother. Otherwise, she was well. But Kunti Maharani and her sons were put into difficulty one after another. For years, the Pandavas had to undergo a lot of problems. Now, definitely, the problem that Mother Devki was undergoing, that was also very severe, that was also very extreme because she had to see her own children being killed in front of her eyes, and she was imprisoned for so long. So definitely that was also a very big problem that she was undergoing. And here Kunti Maharani and her sons also are undergoing so many problems one after another. So firstly, it is the incident of Bhima being poisoned, and subsequently he gained immense strength. So that is mentioned in the Mahabharata in Adi Parva from chapters 128 to 132. So this event, actually, the poisoning of Bhima, it marks a significant escalation in the rivalry between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Now, you all know the history of the Kuru family and how why Duryodhan was envious of the Pandavas, and his father also was always in this victim mentality, and he was always thinking that he was wronged, that he was supposed to be king, but he wasn't getting the throne. And then Prabhupada explains in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, purport also, that Dhritarashtra was not just blind physically, but he was also blind in his thoughts. So it's not that he was wronged just because he was blind, but he was also not a very, pious and a good king in that sense. So definitely he didn't deserve to rule the kingdom. But this feeling of being wrong was always there in his mind, and that poison was also there in Duryodhan's heart. And that is why this feeling of animosity towards his own cousins was there. Now, ideally, devotees explain that ideally, after the death of Pandu, Dhritarashtra should have been more affectionate towards the Pandavas because his brother had passed away. The father of these children had passed away. So, as their uncle, he should have nurtured them, loved them more. But there was so much poison in his heart that, and so much desire to be the king, to be the controller, that he could not let that go. Yeah, so this event of the poisoning of Bhima, this was because of Duryodhana's jealousy. So he deeply resented Bhima. We know this throughout the Mahabharata history, that he was always against the Pandavas and especially against Bhima because he was physically stronger than all the Kauravas, and often playfully. But they would have these kind of playful games, and Duryodhan knew that Bhima was a very strong opponent. So that's why the animosity towards Bhima was even more. So then to eliminate Bhima, because for Duryodhan, he was the primary strength of the Pandavas. So they had a beautiful palace built at a place called Praman Koti on the banks of Ganga. And he invited all the princes for a feast and games. So all the children were there, they were playing games. During the feast, Duryodhan mixed a very potent, very deadly poison called Kalakuta into Bhima's food, and he personally served him large quantities. Now, Bhima, we know that he's a voracious eater, right? So he served large quantities to Bhima, and Bhima, known for his large and huge appetite, he ate the food without any suspicion. Then after the meal, the princess, they were all playing in the water and exhausted and feeling the effects of the poison. Bhima collapsed unconscious on the river bank. And seizing this opportunity, Duryodhan and his brothers and tied him up with vines and pushed his body into the river. So he just wanted to make sure that he was doing everything to ensure that Bhima doesn't come back alive. But as is the Lord's will, devotees of the Lord has a very special plan for them. So Bhima's body was sinking and it reached Nagaloka, the underwater kingdom of the serpents. And numerous snakes were then biting his body. Now, the effect of the poison was counteracted by this. So, the venom of the bites of the snakes miraculously neutralized the poison that Duryodhan had administered to Bhima. Okay. Now, these pastimes, I'm sure you are all aware of these pastimes. It is just that it's nice to keep remembering these pastimes again and again because we see how the hand of the Lord plays in the lives of his pure devotees. So, something that can actually seem very, a situation that can seem very scary, that he was in Nagaloka, but that actually worked in his favor. So the poison of the snakes, the venom of the snakes neutralized the effect of the poison that he had taken. And there was a serpent named Aryaka who happened to be the great grandfather of Kunti Devi. He recognized the unconscious Bhima as part of his family. So he took Bhima to Vasuki, who was the king of the Nagas. And upon hearing the story, King Vasuki offered Bhima a divine nectar, which was called Rasakunda, that would grant him immense strength. So Bhima drank 8 pots of this elixir and he gained the strength of 10,000 elephants. And he slept for 8 days because the nectar integrated into his body. And then he returned to Hastinapur and rejoined his worried family, obviously, because they had been searching for him. But he came back stronger. So Duryodhan's plan was completely foiled, and the opposite happened. He wanted to kill Bhima, but Bhima came back even more strong. So, in this way, we can see that when the Lord is there with the devotees, how miraculous things also happen, right? And then the next point that Prabhupada mentions in the purport is that the burning of the fire, I mean, the burning of the house in the fire. So there was a house that was made of lak. It was called Laksha Griha. It was a palace built by the Kauravas, and the whole plan itself was that they will burn the Pandavas and Mother Kunti. Okay, so this comes in Adi Parva, chapters 139 to 146. Also in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is referenced when Kunti Maharani is praying to Krishna. So this house itself was constructed with flammable materials like lac, ghee, and other items that were easily going to catch fire. So the whole house was designed to kill the Pandavas and make it look like an accident. So we can see in in the life of Duryodhana and the Kauravas, the evil-minded Kauravas, their whole life was revolving around how to get the Pandavas down, how to defeat them, how to kill them, basically how to get them out of the picture, right? But here again, Pandavas, with the help of their uncle Vidura, they escaped through a secret tunnel before the palace was set on fire. Okay, now we can see how much effort Duryodhana was putting in. This palace was built in the village Varanavat, which is and the architect was Purochan, and Duryodhan had planned this so nicely. He ordered the construction to trap and kill the Pandavas. So it was coated with flammable substances for the intended fire. But uh, Vidura, because Vidura, as you know, he was very pious. He's a great devotee of Lord Krishna. He always knew what is right and what is wrong, and he knew about this plan. So he had a secret tunnel that was built in. And on a stormy day, the Pandavas and Mother Kunti, they used this tunnel to escape the burning palace. Okay. Now, after the fire, there was a family of hunters who were hiding in this place. So their bodies were found, and then Duryodhan believed that his plan had actually worked. The Pandavas, however, had escaped to safety, and they went into hiding after this. But this episode is a pivotal moment in the Mahabharata because it's representing betrayal and the Pandavas' survival through the treachery. Now, Duryodhan, he's a very powerful person in himself, right? And we see that how he's misusing all the facilities, all the intelligence, all the power that he has just to bring someone else down. But we know that what is the end of such a person? Such a person is ultimately killed. Such a person dies a very miserable death. And this is a very big learning for everyone, because if we are misutilizing our intelligence, our abilities that Lord Krishna has very kindly given us to harm someone, then that harm is actually going to come back to us, as we see in the life of the Kauravas. And this kind of envy that and hatred that he felt towards the Pandavas, it was actually eating him alive in a way, right? The Pandavas, because they were righteous, they never got into this mood of retaliating, fighting back, because they were actually the rightful heir, but they were wronged in so many ways. But we see the difference between the behavior of a devotee versus the behavior of a non devotee. Through all these trials and tribulations, we see that when the Mahabharata war is about to be fought, Arjuna tells Krishna that I just want to leave everything and go. He So much has happened, they have been wronged in so many ways, but he has that heart to forgive, and that only a pure devotee can do. In this material world, at least speaking of myself, if someone does even something small which is incorrect towards us, we feel so much resentment. We really want to give it back through our words or through our actions. It's very difficult to forgive. But we see Arjuna was just willing to leave everything and go to the forest because he did not want to kill the people who had wronged them in so many ways, right? But only a very pure devotee can do something like this. But we also see that the Lord is not able to tolerate a wrong done towards his devotee. So Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that no, you should not leave and just go to the forest. You have to fight this war because it was important for the establishment of dharma. Okay, so poisoning of Bhima, then burning of this house made of shellac, and then obviously another very important incident is when Draupadi was dragged out and attempts were made to insult her by disrobing her in the whole assembly. So this is again a very well-known pastime, but it is very, very deep. It comes in Sabha Parv of Mahabharat, chapter 60 to 68. And Draupadi is brought to the court. She's humiliated, but she is again protected by divine intervention. So in Srimad Bhagavatam also Kunti Devi is remembering how the Lord saved Draupadi with infinite cloth. So in this regard about Draupadi ji's character and this whole pastime of the Lord protecting her, there is a very wonderful article that has been written by His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. And I'll just read a few points from that because Prabhu is highlighting some very important points which we should know, and we should think about these things also because we see how wrong things are done, and then people try to give justification for those wrongdoings. And Prabhu is explaining this very nicely. So let's just spend a few minutes trying to understand that. So, in this article, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is mentioning that through this whole humiliating incident, her Draupadi ji's admirable character is being revealed. Okay, though she is victimized in her body, she refuses to be victimized in heart. And her exceptional character transforms the lowest point in her life into the highest point. So I'm sure that whenever we think of Draupadi ji, the first image that comes to mind is her raising her hands and Krishna supplying the unlimited sari, isn't it? That is such a beautiful depiction. I mean, thanks to Srila Prabhupada's guidance, thanks to all the wonderful artists, devotee artists who have painted that beautiful painting. But it is such a beautiful depiction, and that just, takes her glory to another level. So, from an incident in which she is most honored, Prabhu says she emerges as the most honorable. Okay. So, now here Prabhu talks about something called technicality in the rules. Okay. Because when she is brought to the assembly and she's deeply insulted, she offers respect to the assembly and she requests that they answer the question. So she is asking the whole assembly that how can this be right, how can you all allow this to happen? And we know that Dhritarashtra is blind, he remains silent. So the responsibility to answer falls on the eldest member, and that is Bhishma Dev. He states that two principles are pertinent. So he's talking from Shastra, that a wife belongs to her husband and nothing belongs to a slave. So he's stating these two things. And he also confesses his inability to decide which of the two principles should take precedence in this circumstance. Because you know the history, what had happened, right? When they were playing this gambling match, the Yudhishthir, King Yudhishthir had lost everything. And then, Duryodhana, evil-minded Duryodhana and his associates, they tell him to then bring Draupadi. Now, if we think from one point, the wife belongs to the husband, so the husband has a right to then give up the wife also. But the other rule is that nothing belongs to a slave. So if Yudhishthir Maharaj had already given up everything, lost everything, and himself and his brothers, then how could he give up to Draupadi? She was not his right to give up, right? She was not in his ownership. There was everything that he had, so he could not give up anything. But Bhishma Dev, he confesses his inability to decide which principle is going to take precedence. So nobody in the assembly offers any other opinion except Dhritarashtra's half brother Viduraji. He strongly condemns the attempt to disrobe Draupadi ji, and indeed the whole conspiracy to dispossess the Pandavas through the rigged gambling match. So this gambling match also was not played fairly, it was rigged. But Duryodhan obviously had made a habit of neglecting everything that Viduraji was saying. So on this occasion, it was not an exception. And his father, too, attached to him, didn't do anything that will displease him. Right. So Viduraji does oppose this, but nobody listens to him. So the whole assembly gets caught in a technicality about dharma and ends up condoning a travesty of dharma. The Bhakti tradition calls such an error niyamagraha. You all remember we had studied this when we were studying Nectar of Instruction. So niyamagraha means sticking to a letter of the law while neglecting its spirit. So the real issue was not that does a woman belong to her husband, but the real issue was did the assembly find the dishonoring of a virtuous woman unconscionable? So, yes, the Shastra may state that a woman belongs to her husband, but do we just go and stick to the word of the Shastra and give up this kind of basic sensibility that it is wrong to, to dishonor a virtuous woman? Right. So, this is how we have to understand that the word of the Shastra has to be understood correctly. So then Prabhu says that this dishonoring of Draupadi is so heinous that it triggers dissension even in the Kaurava camp. So one of Duryodhana's brothers, Vikarna, he rises and urges the assembly to answer her question. So you'll remember that Vikarna's name comes in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita because when Duryodhana is addressing his guru and Bhishma Dev, he mentions that we have such great fighters like Vikarna. He mentions Vikarna specially, even though Vikarna was not such a great fighter, but he wants Vikarna to be on his side because Vikarna was the only person who had actually, who had actually spoken something against the dishonoring of Draupadi ji. But he is answered with silence, so he offers his own opinion. He points out several improprieties in the gambling match. First, the rules of the gambling stated that the person staking the wealth had to cast the dice, not some other person. Now, you know that Shakuni was actually casting the dice on behalf of Duryodhan. So, this itself should have invalidated the match. Okay. But this point, they were not considering this. Second was that Yudhishthir had gambled unwillingly, being compelled by his elders' instruction. And thirdly, he had been goaded to keep gambling far beyond his civilized means. Right? Civilized means okay, whatever he had already lost that. But he was urged again and again to keep gambling more and more, put more things. So things done under the spell of gambling shouldn't be taken seriously among relatives. And most pertinently, he had lost himself first. So he was in no position to stake Draupadi. Okay. But the assembly definitely applauds Vikarna. But here again, Duryodhan's evil minded friend Karna comes. He is very strong and he silences everyone. He actually starts mocking Vikarna, labeling him immature and ignorant of any kind of morality. So, in this way, we see all these points that Vikarna is mentioning, they make a lot of sense. But still, the assembly could not do anything and uh, Vikarna was silenced. So then Duryodhan starts telling Dushasan to start stripping Draupadi. And she's crying in mortification. She desperately holds on to her sari, but she is no match. She's no match for that huge brute Dushasana. Feeling her cloth being forcefully dragged off her body, she raises her hands in fervent supplication to her Lord. Krishna and then begs him to rescue her from sinking in the Kaurava ocean. And by Krishna's mystic power, her sari becomes endless. The Shasana keeps pulling and pulling and pulling, but to no avail. He gets exhausted, but her sari remains inexhaustible. So the whole assembly applauds Draupadi's virtuousness that has attracted such supernatural protection and censures the Kauravas for attempting to dishonor her. So here Prabhu explains that though Krishna did not personally appear to protect Draupadi, so in his personal form he doesn't appear, but the Bhakti tradition explains that he incarnated as her inexhaustible sari. So the Lord can come in any form, right? So here he comes in the form of her sari. So in this incident, Draupadi's honor is being protected by Lord Krishna. And this has been immortalized in our Bhakti tradition, right? And through poetry, through imagery, this incident is spoken about again and again. So Krishna's supernatural intervention is thrilling, it's inspiring, but it shouldn't detract one from Draupadi's strength of character. And that remarkable strength comes from her spirituality, her pure devotion to Lord Krishna, and her foundational spirituality finds its culminating expression in her helpless prayer to Krishna and his miraculous reciprocation. So, Prabhu has written, these words itself are so beautiful to describe this beautiful reciprocation between the Lord and his pure devotee. So, a lot of lessons to learn from this incident. How Draupadi ji, she maintained her strength of mind. Even though physically she was in a very difficult situation, she maintained her strength of mind. She maintained her affection and her devotion and her her love for Lord Krishna, and this full faith that the Lord is definitely going to help her. And that is when she puts out both her hands. She's not trying to save herself by her strength, but she's completely depending upon Lord Krishna's strength. But yes, we also see that her wisdom is very clearly reflected by the way she is addressing the assembly. So she's not like some helpless person in a situation where she's not doing anything. She's not using her mind. She's not using her wisdom. She's doing all of that. In such a precarious situation, also, she has the wisdom to ask these very pertinent questions. Okay, so this is a very, very beautiful reciprocation we see between the Lord and his devotee. Okay. Then next, Prabhupada is talking about when they were all exiled, when the Pandavas were exiled in the forest. Bhima had to fight with the man eater demon, Hidimba Rakshasa, but the Lord saved him. So it was not finished there. So, this pastime also, after escaping the assassination attempt, the Pandavas and Mother Kunti, they were traveling through a dense forest. It was called Kamyaka forest. And once they just stopped to rest. Now, Bhima, because he was so strong, he stood guard, while everyone else was sleeping. But this forest was the domain of Hidimba, one Rakshasa, and his sister Hidimbi, who were actually man eating Rakshasas. So, sensing human presence, Hidimba sends his sister to lure the Pandavas to him so he can eat them. Now, Hidimbi transforms into a beautiful woman and she approaches Bhima, and instead of following her brother's orders, she actually falls in love with the powerful Bhima and reveals her brother's plot that my brother was, this was his plan to eat all of you. So she warns him of the danger. And when Hidimba realizes his sister has not returned and has betrayed him, he gets very angry and he comes to the scene to kill all the Pandavas. And Bhima interjects, challenging the demon to fight to protect his family and Hidimbi. And then there is a very fierce duel. Bhima and Hidimba, they are both very strong fighters. They have immense size and strength. So they fight using trees as weapons and they engage in a wrestling match that shakes the whole earth because both of them are such, fierce and powerful fighters. This noise wakes up Kunti Devi and the other Pandavas, and they also come and watch this confrontation. Arjuna then reminds Bhima to finish the fight quickly because as the night becomes more dense, Rakshasas gain more power. Okay, so as the night is approaching its end, the Rakshasas become very strong, and that's why Arjun tells Bhima that end the fight quickly. So in the end, Bhima overpowers Hidimba. He lifts the demon, he whirls him around, and smashes his back against a large salt tree and breaking him into two and killing him. Now, after the battle, the Pandavas agree to Bhima's marriage to Hidimbi on the condition that he returns to his family by nightfall and leaves her once a child is born. Okay, so then they have a son named Ghatotkach, who instantly grows to adulthood and becomes a loyal ally to the Pandavas. He plays a very important role in the Kurukshetra war also. So this was the whole pastime of Hidimba Rakshasa. Then obviously a very important, very important is the mention of the great battle of Kurukshetra. Uh, so much is spoken about the battle of Kurukshetra, how Lord Krishna really tried to, he also became the Shanti Duta to stop the war, but then a point was reached where the war was inevitable. And there are so many profound lessons that come from the Battle of Kurukshetra, the Bhagavad Gita, most famously. And there is so much to learn from that. We'll not go into that detail because that's a very big discussion in itself. But Bhagavad Gita gives us the importance of fulfilling one's duty, one's dharma, the necessity of surrender to Lord Krishna. And there are so many different topics that are discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, and culminating into Lord Krishna explaining to Arjuna that what is the ultimate thing that we have to do. We have to surrender to Krishna. We have to give up everything and surrender to the Lord. And it highlights that life is a constant battlefield in itself, and true victory is achieved not by material strength but through inner spiritual love, through surrender to Krishna, through devotion to Lord Krishna, as exemplified by Arjuna, who followed Lord Krishna's guidance. So this struggle, in the battlefield, why did Lord Krishna not take Arjuna to a secluded place, a calm place, and then give him this uh, whole knowledge of Gita? Because this knowledge of Gita is for everyone, right? The Lord is giving us protection also through the knowledge of the Gita. So this knowledge is for everyone. All of us have to understand what is our dharma. Finally, what do we have to do in life? We have to do everything for Krishna's pleasure. And so many important lessons which people all over the world are also now realizing and using it in their daily lives. So we have to understand that this was also a very big protection that Lord Krishna gave to the Pandavas. So it was not a physical kind of protection, but it was a protection of the consciousness. Arjuna was really ready to just leave everything and go to the forest. But Lord Krishna was there to give him the right counsel, to give him the right guidance. Right. So that was a very important point. And then after everything was done, the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama, he tried to kill the last surviving heir of the Pandavas. So this was, Ashwatthama released the Brahmastra as a final act of revenge against the Pandavas. And he was targeting the womb of Uttara Devi, and she was carrying the last heir, Parikshit Maharaj. But we know that Lord Krishna intervened to protect the unborn child. And as a consequence, Ashwatthama was cursed to roam the earth, suffering, in deep suffering. So, this incident is a powerful example of how a divine weapon like Brahmastra requires proper use, and that the ultimate destruction of the universe is averted only through the divine intervention of Krishna. And that is also a very beautiful part of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Where Mother Uttara is coming and speaking to Lord Krishna. And in this regard, once my brother had said something which I always remember and I find it very sweet, where he was saying that in Bhagavatam, where she is coming and she's telling Krishna, na, that she's speaking her heart out, and Krishna very patiently hears her out. So my brother was telling me this, that Krishna knows what has happened, right? He knows everything, but still he is so loving that he lets Uttara Devi speak her mind out. So that is such a beautiful gesture of Lord Krishna, that he's not like, yeah, yeah, I know what has happened. I'll protect you. Don't worry. He does protect her, he knows what has happened, but he is so loving towards his devotees that he lets her speak her mind out. Right, and it is so very beautiful. So, this paragraph, I mean, it is really condensed with so much, right? That's why I took so much time on it. Now, let's go to the next paragraph, uh, second paragraph. Here, Kunti remembers. Would someone like to read? Yes, Lalita Vinodini Mataji.
Yeah. Here Kunti remembers all the dangers through which she passed before the Pandavas regained their kingdom. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Kaunteya pratijanihi, na me bhakta pranashyati. My dear Arjuna, you may declare to the world that my devotee is never vanquished. The Pandavas, the sons of Pandu, were great devotees of Lord Krishna. But because people in the material world are interested in material things, the Pandavas were put into many dangers. Their materialistic uncle Dhritarashtra was always planning to kill them, usurp the kingdom for his own sons. That was his policy from the very beginning. Once Dhritarashtra constructed a house of lac, which was so inflammable that when touched with a match, it would immediately burst into fire. Then he told his nephews and his sister-in-law, Kunti, I've constructed a very nice house and you should go live there for some time. But Dhritarashtra's brother Vidura informed them of Dhritarashtra's policy. He wants you to go to that house so that you may burn to ashes. When Dhritarashtra's son Duryodhana understood that Vidura had thus informed the Pandavas, he was very angry. Such is the nature of politics. Then, although the Pandavas knew our uncle's plan is to send us into the house and set it afire, they agreed to go there. After all, Dhritarashtra was their guardian, and they did not want to be disobedient to the order of a superior. But they dug a tunnel under the house, and when the house was set on fire, they escaped. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. So here Prabhupada is telling that how Kunti Maharani is remembering all the dangers through which she had passed before the Pandavas regained their kingdom. So this setting where Kunti Maharani is speaking all these prayers, this is after all this has happened and they got the kingdom back. So things are very nice now. But she is not forgetting what all mercy the Lord had endowed on the Pandavas, right? And this is another very important lesson that, yeah, when there are times of difficulty, we may turn to the Lord, but do we forget the Lord once things become fine? But Kunti Maharani is a great devotee, so she is not forgetting anything. Rather, she is remembering all the problems that had come up, and she's just understanding and expressing that it was all by the Lord's mercy that they were able to come out of it, right? And Prabhupada quotes this very beautiful verse, Kaunteya pratijanihi na me bhakta pranashyati. This is in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the 31st verse. And this verse is also very, very beautiful. And just this very fact that why Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna that you declare that my devotee never perishes. This is also so beautifully explained by devotees that Krishna doesn't himself say this. He asks Arjuna to declare it because if a devotee promises anything, the Lord will do anything to protect the words of the devotee. Right. So, this and also this understanding that a devotee never perishes, this is also very important. Because when Krishna says that my devotees will not perish, it is not that, a devotee cannot fall from Krishna consciousness, but some distraction from Krishna consciousness, but it is temporary. It is not eternal. There may be a slip or a fall, but there will not be any fatality. That is how it is explained. So, whatever credit one has acquired, that will be there with the person forever. So, when a fall happens because of attachment to sense gratification, the attachment to Krishna will not go away, but it is sometimes covered temporarily. In the material world, we are vulnerable to material offerings, right? We have freedom, because of which sometimes one may choose worldly offers. But it is explained that there is a difference between falling down and falling away. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu explains this very nicely. He says falling down means that we are moving towards Krishna and we fell down. Okay, at the bottom of the whole universe, there is the Garbhodaka, Garbhodakshai Vishnu is there. So if you fall down and down, then Mahavishnu is still there to take care of us. So even if someone falls down from a particular standard, he should still take shelter of Krishna, and Krishna will catch and also uplift him. But we should not fall away from Krishna. So this is very important to understand that sometimes on the path of bhakti also, it may happen that a devotee is not able to follow all the principles, or for a while there is some distraction that takes the devotee away. But this does not mean that because of that one incident, the devotee has perished, the bhakti has perished, and we should start disrespecting them. Fall. Like here, Prabhu is saying, we may fall down. Sometimes we fall down. Because this material world is very difficult. So we may fall down, but we should not fall away from Krishna. So anything that is causing some distraction to us, but we should keep coming back to Krishna. So whenever scripture guarantee that whatever happens, my devotee will be protected, devotees should understand that this is Krishna's love. And they try to love and serve Krishna more and more. We should not take advantage of this statement that, okay, yeah, now I'm a sadhaka, I can do whatever I want. Krishna has promised that devotee never perishes, so I'm completely safe. That's not the intention of this verse. The intention is that the Lord is very, very merciful. And thinking of this mercy, we should try to follow all the principles even more strongly. Right? So if the love of the Lord is so great, and the Lord is so great that even if he is displeased by his devotees, he doesn't stop loving them. Okay, so since a devotee has rendered service in the past, an occasional fall down, that is what Prabhupada also explains, that on an occasional fall down is something that Krishna doesn't, that Krishna doesn't really fix up upon. He lets that go. So Prabhupada in the purport also, he mentions that continuous thinking of the Supreme Lord makes him pure by nature. So the devotee is pure by nature. According to the Vedas, there is a certain regulation that if one falls down from his exalted position, he has to undergo certain ritualistic processes to purify himself. But here, there is no such condition because the purifying process is already there in the heart of the devotee due to the remembering of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare should be continued without stoppage. This will protect a devotee from all accidental fall downs. He will thus remain perpetually free from all material contaminations. So, here by mentioning this verse, Prabhupada is explaining two things to us, that how we see in the life of the Pandavas that the Lord is always there to protect the Pandavas. The Lord is, when the Lord promises that my devotee is never vanquished, how wonderfully he keeps that promise. So that is one thing. The second thing that we have to learn from this verse is that this verse should increase our love towards Lord Krishna and not taking this for granted that okay, the Lord has said he will protect, so whatever I want I can do. That's not the purpose of this verse. So we have to understand the loving nature of the Lord through this verse. And Kunti Devi is, again, she's remembering the dangers that they had been put through, the burning of the house, and Prabhupada explains that this is the nature of politics. Although the Pandavas knew that, this is the plan, they knew this is the politics being played, but still how righteous they are, how wonderful they are, that they don't want to be disobedient to the order of a superior. So they are willing to go through such a big danger also just to give respect to Dhritarashtra. Okay, so Dhritarashtra had, he had asked them to move into that house, and they were willing to do that. But yes, through the tunnel that had been dug up under the house, they were able to escape when the house was set on fire. Okay, now this fourth and the fifth paragraph, we can read it together. Would someone like to read? I'll read. Another time when the Pandavas were at home, Dhritarashtra gave them. Yes, Mataji?
Yeah, if nobody is reading, I'll read, Mataji.
Okay, yes, please, Mataji.
I'll have to start from another time, no?
Yes, Mataji, the
Yeah.
highlighted portion.
Yeah. Another time, when the Pandavas were at home, Dhritarashtra gave them poison cakes, but they escaped from being poisoned. The Purushada Darshanat. Okay, Purushada Darshana. They met a man-eating demon named Hidimba Rakshasa, but Bhima fought with him and killed him. On another occasion, the Pandavas were cheated in a game of chess in the royal assembly of the Kurus. Dhritarashtra, Bhishma Deva, Dronacharya, and other elderly persons were present. And some or other, Draupadi, the wife of the Pandavas, was placed as a bet. Now, if you lose, the Kurus told the Pandavas, Draupadi will no longer be your wife. So when the Pandavas lost the game, Karna and Dushasana immediately captured her. No, you no longer belong to your husbands. They told her, you are our property. We can deal with you as we like. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mataji. So here again, those pastimes which Prabhupada had mentioned in the first paragraph, those are being mentioned again in detail. So how Kunti Devi is praising the Lord's affection for the Pandavas, and how her children and herself, they were protected again and again by the mercy of the Lord, whether it was poisoning of the food of Bhima, or this burning of the house, and this the meeting with Hidimba also. She is understanding, she is realizing, and she's also reciprocating this, that through all these problems, they were able to get out of it only by the Lord's mercy. Okay, so Kunti Devi, as I mentioned earlier, uh, she's not forgetting all the favors that the Lord had done. Rather, she is recounting all of that. And through this, we can understand that how deep is her affection and how deep is her gratitude for Lord Krishna. Right? She is giving all the credit to the Lord, and that is what we also have to understand, that there are so many miraculous things that are happening everywhere. Even in our lives, if we pause and think, and if we become very reflective, we can understand that there are so many things that are happening which are only by the mercy of the Lord. Otherwise, how can so many wonderful things happen to devotees? And we should not think that anything is happening by chance. It is a coincidence. And His Grace Amoglila Prabhu says that coincidence is a word that should not be used by devotees. So anything that is happening in the life of a devotee, we have to understand that it is under the sanction of the Lord. If the devotee is like fully surrendered to the Lord, it is by the Lord's sanction. And like the Pandavas, like Queen Kunti, they were tolerating everything. And what are our problems compared to the problems that the Pandavas and Mother Kunti were facing? I mean, from their childhood, one after the other, there were so many things that they were going through. But there was not even one moment where they had even slight mistrust on Lord Krishna, right? Dhritarashtra and his sons, they made repeated attempts to destroy the Pandavas. I mean, they were not letting them live even for a moment in peace, right? Every time, whether it was the poisoning or the burning incident, Draupadi is insulting, or Dhritarashtra supporting the exile when it comes in the one parva. So Dhritarashtra's partiality and blindness to Duryodhana's schemes was always there. But Kunti Devi is mentioning the dangers caused by their enemies. And she is saying that through all these problems, they were able to survive it by the Lord's mercy. Because Lord Krishna's presence was there in the life of the Pandavas, they were able to get through all of that. Right. And we know that what is she actually praying for? She's praying that through all these problems, you were there with us, Lord. So now, why are you leaving us? She is willing to accept more and more problems in her life if that means that Krishna is going to be with them. And that is just, it's another level of devotion, right? Unthinkable, unimaginable emotion that she has, and devotion to the Lord. So, a lot of learning we have from her prayers, from her life itself. And Prabhupada has so wonderfully explained on these pastimes in the purport. So, we'll stop here now. If there are any questions, we have a few minutes because there's another class at 3 o'clock. So, we have to close before that. Any questions, any comments, anything you would like to share from your own personal experience? We have a few minutes. Nothing?
Yes, Mataji, it's clear only.
Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. So thank you so much. And we should not think that these wonderful things are happening only in the life of Kunti Maharani. Obviously, her life is exemplary in every way. But we see that when there is surrender to Lord Krishna, uh, wonderful things will happen in the lives of all devotees. So whether we see in the life of Srila Prabhupada or in the life of his disciples, when we hear the experiences of devotees, we know that how wonderful Krishna is and how personal Krishna is. So in the form of Paramatma, he is there with all of us. The only thing is we have to understand and reciprocate to the Lord. And then the learning that we can get from Kunti Maharani's life, that is just, I mean, that is very condensed learning, and her life is exemplary, and definitely it's not possible to follow her, to pray the way she was praying. It's very difficult to reach that stage, but we can still make the endeavor to follow it to some extent, at least through the all the problems that we may be facing. We can get inspiration from the lives of devotees to do not fall away from Krishna, as Chaitanya Charan Prabhu mentioned. Yes, we may sometimes in our devotional life, there may be instances where when we are so bogged down by the problems in our life that we feel very weak. But whatever happens, as Prabhupada has mentioned, we'll get strength through the chanting only. So that chanting, that worshipping of the Lord, that should never stop. That should continuously go on, because that is the source of strength for us. Okay. So we'll stop here now. Okay. See you all again next week, Monday. Yeah. Thank you all so much for your patient hearing. And yeah, let's keep meditating on these wonderful pastimes that Prabhupada has so kindly given the details of in the purport. I mean, it is just Prabhupada's mercy that he has spent so much time in these beautiful purports that he has given us. So let's keep that meditation going. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is one part, but we should also, after the Shravanam, we should also do Mananam, to think that what did we hear, what did we read today, and how can we actually apply it in our lives. That is also another very important aspect of reading Srimad Bhagavatam. And His Holiness Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Swami Maharaj was saying that in life we will have so many friends who will come and go, but Srimad Bhagavatam is one friend that will always stay with us. That is, Srimad Bhagavatam is our best friend. So we should have very, very deep relationship with Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so we'll stop here today. Thank you all so much. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhyacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, कुंती महारानी की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, श्री गुरु महाराज की जय. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila
Thank you,
Prabhupada.
Mataji, for sharing so many wonderful pastimes. You've taken so much nectar from various devotees and then shared it with us. Thank you, Mataji. Thanks a lot.
Praise to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hari Bol. Thank you all for joining. See you
Thank you,
next week.
Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Dandavat
you.